Yay!
Yay! This is exciting. Um, Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for joining for our first ever Women in Animation Bay Area chapter YouTube Q&A. That is a mouthful. Um, we hope with the series we can bring on guests and provide some education, resources, and a little entertainment to the amazing women and non-binary folk who want to pursue and thrive in the animation industry. So please subscribe and put down questions in the chat or topics you want us to talk about in the future, and we will do our very best. So without further ado, it is my privilege to introduce you all to Andrea Goh. Andrea is a very dear friend of mine who inspires me every day with her words of wisdom and some serious artistic and problem-solving chops. So she's currently working at Pixar, but her journey started all the way in Malaysia. So, Andrea, tell us about your path to get to where you are now.
Hi, Amy, and
Hi.
thank you, Women in Animation, and thanks for coming for our take 2, where we don't echo anymore. So a little bit about me. Well, I will give you the full timeline, just so you know how I got to where I am. Like Amy said, I'm Andrea Goh. I'm from Malaysia, born and raised in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and it's my hobby, like as a kid, to draw comics and watch movies, love Jurassic Park, all this stuff. But I never imagined that I would actually do it as a career until I graduated high school. I actually almost became a doctor.
I can't imagine that right now.
I know. I am so glad. I'm so glad I did not become a doctor. I will feel like I will have failed a lot of patients. But anyway, this is a true story. I really was applying, looking up all the medical school in Malaysia, and my dad was so happy. And then Pixar sent 9 artists all the way to Malaysia to this art school called the One Academy to give a talk about how they made Toy Story 3. And I was like, oh, I love Toy Story. I just want to go check it out. Part of my hobby. And then I went there and they blew my mind. They talk about every single department. And it's not just animation, which we all used to think. There's so much more to all that. And I was like, I want to do that. And thankfully, my mom was very supportive. My dad was a little skeptical, but my mom made me promise that I know what this industry is, she said, and I know it's a very passionate industry, so can you just promise me one thing, that you always make sure to take care of your health doing it, no late nights. And I was like, okay, I guess I broke all the promises.
Your mom is so wise, and she knew what you're into.
She knows when something is driven by the heart, it's so hard to stop yourself that you would do anything. So with my support of my parents, very thankful. I went to the One Academy in Malaysia and did around 3 years of degree there. And through that, I learned all the CG stuff, from modeling all the way to design to figure drawing. I thought I was going to be a modeler. I love ZBrush sculpting, and I thought I was going to do Blur Studio or Blizzard, crazy monster stuff, because I was so into that stuff too, right? But then towards the end, during my graduation film, we made a stylized short film, and that's when it reminded me my passion is actually in that. It's not actually about action pack and all the monster fighting each other, where it's not about the story. So that reminded me and pulled me back to I guess it's the first realization is wow, I kind of went a little off track. That's why I pulled back. And during that time, I also realized my love for rigging, because we had to do a crash course in rigging. No one wanted to do it, and I was like, sure, why not? And how hard could it be? And it was so tough.
But women in rigging and technical positions, right? That's amazing.
Yeah. yeah, it surprised a lot of people. I don't know why, but
I think like you
um,
get like a lot of flack, right, when like women are in like tech or like the technical things or things related to math, because like that was like my experience, like being from studying computer science. Like a lot of my male peers were super skeptical of like me and like me actually being really smart and surpassing them in
I
class.
know, yeah, I got a lot of, yeah, definitely. I feel like a lot of women get this too, like just backhanded compliment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I literally had someone message me like, "Wait, you're doing rigging?" I was like, "Yeah." It's like, "But you're a girl." I'm like, "What?" Anyways,
Yeah.
so from there, like I finished a film, did rigging. I was like, "Yeah, I want to be a rigger now." And that's when I graduated. I was like, "Wait, I just learned this skill. How am I supposed to like do anything?" And then because of like realizing like, oh, I really want to tell like stylized uh, animation with like good story, it reminded me like, oh, this is why I started. Like I really wanted to be like part of something that values like storytelling. So I looked up where I should go, and Pixar's in the Bay Area. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna go to San Francisco. And again, very, very thankful that my parents supported me. So I came here. I moved my whole life here, I guess.
That must have been like really hard going from like one country to like another, like with speaking like a different language and like everything else. But yeah.
Yeah, that was 6 years ago. It was crazy. 6 years ago, moved all the way here, and actually, I feel like I'm again blessed that like San Francisco isn't that like different from Malaysia. So Malaysia is very multicultural. We grew up with a lot of cultures and people talking all kinds of language. We get all kinds of food, all kinds of Asian food. And came to San Francisco, I actually thought that, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be with people way taller than me. I'm gonna have to eat burgers and pizza every day. But that's not the case. So yay. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I came here 6 years ago and enrolled in Academy of Art University. Um, Supposed to go into master's program, but then something like some policy like was so funky. I remember I was so sad. Like they were like, "Oh, we actually don't recognize your degree anymore, so you have to do like another 4 years of bachelor degree."
Oh,
And so me and my friend at that time were like, "No way!" Luckily, I had a friend who like went through the same thing, so she was like, "No way!" We're fighting this, and so we fought. And like I remember it was like the very first semester we had to do assignments and come up with portfolios to prove that we took these classes back in Malaysia. So we are not going to retake these classes anymore. And in the end, we got to a deal where like we got into a bachelor's degree, but it's tuned down to like 2 years. Like we don't have to go through all the foundation classes anymore.
hmm.
So yeah, so through my time in Academy of Art, I learned more about rigging and coding. So that's when all the fun solving problem stuff comes up, and I still do. I still did some modeling because I just basically love everything in the pipeline, except for animation.
That's
Yeah,
like the one thing that everyone like wants to do, right? But you're like the opposite. We're like, I don't want to do
uh,
animation.
I'm basically the opposite. I don't want to paint or animate. So you guys who are way more talented in it, like take it away. So yeah, and I think it was my second last semester. Yeah, second last semester, summer, and that's when I'm like, okay, I guess I want to try to take a step into my career and see how it goes. I should apply to internship, and I saw this PUP program, which is Pixar undergrad program, back in 2015. Wow, I'm old.
What? Okay. And so
Yeah,
you got into pub.
yeah, so I applied like the description sounds like perfect. Like it's like, you know, like you if you want to try different things in the pipeline, you don't have to animate, you don't have to paint. You just learn the entire pipeline and to show interest and curiosity in each department. And I was like, yeah, that's me. So I applied and thankfully got in. So lucky. And so that's like a 10-week program with like 9 artists that eventually you will have to return to school. So
Right.
they want to expose like just like almost graduating students to new pipeline. And then another interesting shift in focus during pups happened. It's because I got to learn everything from modeling, layouts, addressing, and everything. And so layout is something new that at a time most school never really cared about. Like they never really offered like camera classes. So camera was always just like a form of hobby, like a photography for me. So when I went to pups, they taught me all about cinematography, how to like think in composition, how to like stage your characters, and I was like, wait, what? I love this too. So
Just to clarify the audience, for those who don't know what layout is, it's basically the staging of the camera in like a 3D space, right? You're basically the director of photography.
yeah,
And like,
basically it's cinematographer inside the computer.
right,
Yeah,
yeah.
and yeah, and then like you geek out and study all the live action movies, and then try to translate them into 3D. And so I never knew that world existed. And again, I was like faced with this like conflict. I was like, oh man, I thought I was gonna be a rigger. Like I came all the way here to like build my rigging skills. Like when I first started, I want to be a modeler, and then I changed to rigging, and then now it's like, what? I'm changing again. And I remember at that time, Christina Farage was also one of the pups, and like a lot of people supported me. I really just like, what do I do, guys? Some people are like, I don't know, it's up to you. And then Christina was like, I feel like camera is your thing. That's what she said. And then one of the biggest thing the pups instructor said was, you already have portfolio in rigging in your reel, so what's the harm in just trying something new? If you hate it, then go back to school and do rigging. And if you love it, then yay, you know. So that really stuck with me. I was like, oh yeah, what's the harm of just trying? So
Right.
so I did that for like my pups like final project, and it was amazing. And then I went back to school and was like, okay, I need to study more films now. So I like pivoted within that final semester, and yeah, and then graduated and applied and got to Pixar as a layout intern,
Nice.
and that was 2016. Yes.
So like when you were like making that huge transition because you had that realization in like in pup, right? Like, oh, I was going to do rigging and then you were going to go do layout. Like, how did you, you like, did you have resources of studying layout at your school, or did you have to like figure that out on your own?
I kind of have to figure out. I mean, it was really good to have the crash course at Pixar, which is basically like just 2 days of lecture and
Wait, only
like
2 days?
yeah, and then
My
the rest
goodness.
of it is like assignment time, like that kind of thing, and then the rest is up to me to like dig it out from like existing layout artists, which that they're all busy at a time. So it's like, and Adam Habib became my mentor, which is also very helpful. So when I went back to school, so Adam Habib is the director of photography for Onward, and at the time he was a layout lead for Inside Out. So when I went back to school, I was keeping in touch with him and just asking him like, hey, just not really any layout classes. Like, what should I do? And he was like, you can just study films. So I actually took as many film studies class from like the oldest one to the newest ones, like history of animation, history of like film noir, and even like Asian American film cinema, Asian film cinema. It was like so like mind blowing, and try to like cram. I guess like try to like study like how cinematographers think, because it's all out there, all the resources, especially
Right.
online too, and like I just use like my school time to study before even trying to like perform, because I know like I'll execute it later as long as I have like a library of like knowledge.
Right.
So yeah, that's how I did it.
So like basically like having a mentor like really helped guide you towards like finding a way to like study layout and like hone your skills on top of like being like a little resourceful, doing some Googling and finding a bunch of things online to learn about layout. That's
Yeah,
like,
and it's
that's
like
really neat.
watching a lot of movies, basically. Just studying like
That sounds
that's
fun.
yeah, I think yeah, that's the thing. Like it's like I think there's a kind of method of like trying to master something where you like front load, like study a lot of masters who are so good at like study how they did it, and then study all different kind of methods of how they did it, and then you like pick one or another that is like you're drawn to. You know, like you study like Wes Anderson, you study Wong Kar-wai. You start to form your own thinking of like, oh, I actually like this kind of camera. I actually don't like this kind of staging. And then you have your own thinking. Then you can like start to like execute and then realize like, oh, who am I to criticize this person? Like I can't even like place this camera properly. Like it's actually so hard to like do that. Like, you know, then together like the studying and the executing will help you perform.
Yeah. Wow. So like finding your identity. So then I guess that transitions to the next part of your journey when what happened when you graduated from school.
Yeah. So this is, I feel like the more I talk about it, the more I realize a lot of people went through this. So I got into Pixar as a layout intern and then layout artist doing Cars 3. And the first few months was like super tough, and it's like no one's fault. And it's because of imposter syndrome. So I really want to highlight this because I think a lot of people don't know that this exists, or they think like they're alone. And I think by thinking you're alone when you have imposter syndrome keeps the cycle going. And the only way to break it is when you realize like, actually, what, this is normal. This is, everyone goes through this. So the first few months, like it was pretty tough because
Being at Pixar, right? In terms of like, you know, what are your thoughts with like what was your version of imposter syndrome? Because like everyone I think has different kind of experiences with imposter syndrome. What was
yeah,
yours?
yeah. So like I don't think this would be specific to Pixar. I guess it would be like specific to something that you care about, and then you finally like get it. And so like I moved all the way here to America so that I could work at Pixar, and I got it. And then now it's like here it is. And also being like young, and this is my first ever job like in the industry, and I just moved from the city to like Emeryville for this, and like being a part, and like I was like so many things that are new and changing. And then while presented with this thing like, this is why you're here, so it was like a lot on me. And even though everyone was like super nice, like, hey, just let me know if you need any help, okay, like, yo, like we're chill and everything, I'm still like, i cannot I cannot show a side where I like cannot, I don't know where that button is. Oh crap, I'm the worst artist in the whole world. And like on top of that, like I even have like a lot more like anxiety on like I never actually went to school for layout, like so it's like, oh gosh, like why am I here, like you know, like it's imposter syndrome in a way is like it's a fear of like finding out that for other people to find out that you might not be who they think you are.
Right.
So that, and then it makes you want to like hide more, like don't look at my actual process because it's actually like
You're
not.
just like, oh, stay away, like don't
Yeah,
look, like you know, oh, like it's almost as if it doesn't have any room for mistakes because you're
yeah,
so
definitely.
scared of messing up in front of everyone or anyone that like you admire or like don't want to disappoint.
Yeah, definitely. And like I'm lucky that it was happening during like a non-toxic like environment. Like I could only imagine like if you have that on top of a toxic environment, it's just gonna be like I'm the worst. But I just want to say like what helped me was um, I guess I think fully it's like I just keep questioning like why am I so miserable? Like just one on one, why am I so miserable? That's number one. And then talking to my loved ones, like people around me, like they ran back to my boyfriend place and like just cried. He was just like, okay. Um, and then and a third, luckily I found this book by Brene Brown. It's called Daring Greatly, and she basically described every single thing that I was going through, like the shame and like how I use it to like hide and not talk to anyone, and like I freeze, and I also want to thank like one of my coworkers who was like the youngest, like freshest one before me. He was there a year ago. He was an intern a year ago, like me, and he was constantly just like poking me like every day, like, "Hey, want to have lunch?" And I'll be like, "No." "Hey, want to talk?" "No." Like I'm like in this constant mode where I have to be perfect. Hence, I need to just keep working, and that's like a very dangerous like cave shield to have. So, and he was constantly just like, "Hey, you wanna? Hey, check this out. Look, you like Overwatch, right? Like, hey, like," and I was like, "I don't have time to talk about games right now." Like,
I have to keep working.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of us go through that. Like, like you kind of like just like, "No, I need to like do this." And now that I think about it, like he actually helped me like open up more. Like once I read the Brené Brown book, I realized like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm doing. I need to change this. And then changing that behavior takes like another step where you're like, who do I change it with step by step? And it was him that was when he's like, "Hey, do you want to check this out?" Instead of saying no, I'd be like, "Yeah, why not?" And that like step by step opening me up back again. Yeah. So that got me through like Cars 3 and then Incredibles 2. And then visa problem.
Oh, no. Yeah, like so like on top of like going through imposter syndrome, which I feel like I have to also have to say like everyone goes through this. Like you don't have to be at the number one studio to experience imposter syndrome, and even the people who are all the way at the top also experience this. Like no one, it's in some ways it never goes away, but you acquire those tools like your support system and reading words of knowledge to like work against the shame and things like that. Like I think everyone can relate to imposter syndrome for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm feeling imposter syndrome right now talking to you. Like, it's like, why are you guys listening to me? Like, like you could listen to this guy who was just like, 70 years in experience in the industry, right? So, but then that's just like perspective, like, and I can change that perspective into like, I'm just gonna say what I'm gonna say. If you want to listen, you listen.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely like can relate because I used to work in tech and I never went to school for animation, and yet here I am, having the like finding the right people, finding just keep going at it, like finding a studio where I made a film with a bunch of other people who also didn't know what they were doing, right? And now, and that was a lot of imposter syndrome there because I was like, wow, who am I to be able to lead a bunch of people who are so much more talented than I am. And that was like my journey of like fighting imposter syndrome, and thankfully like you were there like to help me along that way and like fight the shame.
That is the best way to lead. Like through my experience, like you want to lead a team full of people who are better than you versus not. like I, as a leader, I always just like, I want a team of experts who like will fill in on the things that I don't know.
Right.
It's like the best like feeling.
And it's like
ever.
the strongest team, right? Because like you don't want to be the one who knows it all, because like you are only human. You can only know so much, and animation has so many facets to it that it is literally impossible to know everything in such deep detail, and also to keep growing that facet of yourself. So like, yeah, that's definitely, I think that's the amazing thing about animation, right? Where it's so collaborative and you pull all these amazing people together to create something so beautiful.
Yeah, definitely. So, are we going to talk about the visa problem?
Yeah, we can talk about the visa. So, as someone from Malaysia who went to then came to the United States for school and then getting to Pixar, you hit your goal. Then visa issues. What happened there?
Yeah, so anyone who is international to any country would know visa issues. There's always a joke where international students get together. They can never leave the topic of visa problems, like literally. But I am again, I just want to say I'm thankful that I am on like a pretty stable side right now to be able to talk about it. But if you're still fighting it, like just keep holding on. And I think for my case, it's the usual, like the student visa, and then when I got internship and my job, I was still like OTP, like an extension from the student visa. And it's always toughest when it's like a transitioning between visas. Um, so most companies don't really sponsor like work visa or like green card unless like I don't know, unless it's like a special case. So, but even if they do sponsor like a H1B, it's not guaranteed because it's like a lottery system. Because a lot of people want to do what we do, like in all the different countries. So there's just too many to pick. And yeah, so what happened is during my around like the first sequence that I was building for Incredibles 2, this is already kind of known that I'm always like very diligent about like my visa like schedule and stuff. Like I think that's number one, to like always just, as much as I hate paperwork, visa is like, unless you don't really care about like staying in the country that you want to be in, but I would say like just stay on top of the visa paperwork. And I know it can be so stressful, especially for someone like me who's Amy can attest to that. I am the least organized person. I have learned along the way, and visa has taught me so much. Like, just don't give them any reason to fault you on like paperwork. Like, oh, you like spell your name wrong, denied. Like, oh, you did this, denied. And it's basically like kind of like stressful, right? Because it's basically saying like your paperwork has to be like perfect. Your process has to be perfect. And then it's even more like sad when it's like, even if everything is perfect, there's no guarantee you will get it. So that, I totally know like what that experience is like. It's just so stressful. And I would say like just hang in there. And for my experience, so Incredibles 2, sorry, I'm rambling right
No
now.
worries. So like with your like visa and everything, and like you like definitely being organized like really helped you, and like it must be so daunting that things were out of your control, even if you like tried your best, right? And
Yeah,
so
but you definitely have to like give your very best first,
yeah.
and then give your very, very best. So what is it? I'm trying to
So
think. It was 2018?
yeah, pretty recent.
2017. It was
Okay.
2017, and so I actually try to layer my options as much as possible, because there's always like O1 visa, H1B visa, there's green card. I layered in a way that like, okay, if my student visa ends, I need to make sure at least I can stay for a while they figure out my H1B visa. And then, well, if that doesn't work out, my route would be like O1 or like green card. I have a lot of friends who did that. So um, around like close to the summer, I remember it was like the worst timing ever. I remember it was like a Thursday, and then I took like the Friday tomorrow like off so that I can go to D23 in LA for my first ever D23. So on Thursday, my supervisor was like, "Hey, can we have a chat in my office?" And I was like, "What could it be? I don't know." And I went in and I saw like the visa person and like and my supervisor, and they looked very sad. And I was like, "Why is everyone sad?" And they're like, "So you didn't get the H1B, and your work permit expired." And that's the thing. I did everything. And because the government like delayed the work visa, the work permit, sorry, I actually renewed it, and I'm waiting for a new one. And if they came in time, I wouldn't have to like leave Pixar. But they like decided to like add more like 3 more months to it. I think that was
Yeah.
during the whole transition of presidency. It's so annoying. And so they're like, oh, sorry, your work permit is not gonna come until like 3 months later. I was like, what? I can't wait 3 months. I need, and in the U.S. you legally need a work permit to like be employed. So
Right.
they're like, so your work permit is still expired, which means we legally cannot have you do like a single work. You can't even like touch the button on your keyboard, or because it's illegal. So they're like, so we'll leave you on the Friday to pack up and take everything home.
Wow.
And I was like, I have tomorrow off. I'm gonna be in LA tomorrow. And it was like so like abrupt. And they're like, oh, okay, maybe we can make an exception and have you come back on Monday and just we get a promise not to do any work, just to grab
Right.
your stuff and go. And that was like,
Wow.
and I remember I was like pretty much in denial that like this is not goodbye. I remember, like there's a lot of studios when you leave, they're like send a goodbye email, everyone like goodbye party. I was like, no way, I'm sending that email. I'm just gonna tell my team like visa problem, we'll be back.
I'll be back.
Yeah, and obviously like the studio can't guarantee my comeback. Obviously,
Right.
like it's gonna base on like whether they need me later or something. So that was pretty devastating during that time. I
Yeah.
was out for like 6 months, and then for the first few months, I was basically like sleeping till like 12 or 1 p.m. and waking up like, what am I doing with my life? And actually, this experience kind of had like a blessing in disguise. I mean, I only say this because now it's all good, but like when I was in the thick of it, um, someone really helped me. So Sarah Sampson, she's forever like my life and career mentor. She I like to have like mentors that are like different levels in
Like
their
different
life.
parts of your life or something.
Yeah, so they're the kind of mentors that you feel like, wow, I aspire to be like you, and it's kind of like far away,
Yeah.
kind of like you just keep chasing that. And then I also like the kind of mentor that's just like one step ahead of you, which means that's your next step, and that
Yeah.
is like so important. And Sarah's kind of like that for me. She actually just left Pixar like 3 months before I had to leave, so she was like ahead of me, like one step ahead of me. And I was like having tea with her, and I was just like, oh, Sarah, like, what do you regret? Like, because when I was out, she already got her next job, which she's like very happy about and stuff. And so I was like, what do you regret the most when you were like out? And she was like, I regret not enjoying that downtime. And she gave me this piece of advice. She's like, you know, when this is all like solved, you're gonna be back on and working your butt off, and you're not gonna take any vacations, knowing you. So so she's like, so why don't see this as like a forced vacation if you can, like
Yeah.
try to enjoy it while you can, because there's so many things like when you're in like a full-time job that you can't do because you work 9 to 6 and then you're like so tired,
Right.
and then you can't even like think of learning something new. This is like the best time to like just recharge, sleep as much as I want. And she said like definitely give yourself like the first few weeks to be like sad about it. You have to like be sad. So I was like so sad. And so sad. And then Marius, my husband, also gave me a good advice. He's just like, just go outside. Just even if you don't feel like doing anything, just go outside. And during that time, I latched on to my friends like you, Amy. I remember you had your studio, and Heidi, who was also out of her job and working remotely. So I like just grab on anything that can like force me out. So I'd be like, Amy, you're going to studio, right? Like, just take me out, take me to the studio, like that kind of thing. Even if I was not productive, even I was still outside and not like just moping indoors. So that really helped. And then the second thing, blessing in disguise. Well, actually, there's three. Second one is this forced me to kind of think, who am I without my career? Because most of us work our whole life. We're being told, like, you gotta study and get this grade, and you're gonna graduate, and then you're gonna go to this school, and you graduate again, you're gonna get this job.
Then you're gonna get married, then you're gonna have kids, then you're gonna then you're gonna have a happy white picket fence life, and that's not how it goes.
Yeah, and then like this is your career now, and then like after all that, like the career was basically like ripped out of me. I literally cannot be hired to work. Like it would be illegal. So it was ripped out of me. So I was like, obviously the first few weeks I was like so sad, like, oh my gosh, like what the hell? Like I remember I wouldn't even want to like step into the studio, like, or even talk to anyone who's still working there.
Right.
Because it feels like, because a lot of people are like, wait, you're not here anymore? Like, okay, I don't want to explain this. Like, that kind of thing. And
like too painful, right? Yeah.
well, I mean, it's not that. It's like people still treat me as if I'm part of the family when I know I'm not. And it's like, like, what do I say? Like, I can't say like, no, I'm not part of this anymore, or because that's not true. I am still part of that. But yeah, so it's like so much of that. Like, I just like, I don't want to deal with this. And I feel like it made me think about it a lot and come to terms with like, you know what? I am still me without the career. Like, if suddenly like things go wrong, if things go wrong and like none of us can work anymore, yeah, sure, there's like always like the financial part of things, like the logistics kind of things, but emotionally and like identity wise, I figure out that part, like I'm okay without a career.
Right.
So how do I get to that point is, I guess I ripped it out and then and then really think like, am I really like unhappy without it? Like, like really truly ask myself that. And then I actually found other things that like, oh, I can still do photography. Like, I don't need like a job to make me do photography. I don't need like a career to make me do art. I can still do art whenever I want. Like, so that reminded me like, oh, career is like, even though it's attached to art, it can be separated if there's, like, I would be even sadder if there's no art in this world and we only have career, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's something really important here where like for people in animation, it's so important to have something outside of your passion, because if you only have animation to just focus on your entire time, there's going to be a lot of imbalance in your life where all you'll think about is animation, and you can't grow beyond that because you can't just be on animation 100% of your time, right? Like when you get on, like you go to work, you get off work, are you do more animation, or are you going to do like more things that, watching TV, enjoying hikes, going, doing photography, right? Or going bowling or clubbing. There's like so many things to you that can be more than your passion. It's really important to balance that.
It is also very hard to balance that, for sure. But
because we're just such workaholics.
Yeah, but definitely just remember, like, you need input to have good output. If you're always just outputting and then slowly you're just going by whatever it's in your library, your memory, it's not like fresh input. So you're not up to date. Like, I think especially in this industry, we need to stay up to date. And I know it can be like tough, like, but during this downtime, I got to like see America for like, I never like step out of the state, like really to like travel to, and I had savings and the means to do it. So I just like, you know what, I always want to go to Portland. So let's go check out Portland. And then, and at the same time, I had the drone that my friends and my husband all like pooled the money to get for my birthday, and it was sitting there for months. I didn't like, because it's such an expensive piece of like equipment that you gotta fly and it might crash, and so like I like keep procrastinating on like learning how to fly it. And then when this whole like downtime happened, I was like, okay, I'm gonna just bring my drone to whichever state I'm going and just try to fly it. And through that I learned how to fly a drone. And then like through that, like I joined like the drone community, and then just like take tests to be like certified, not verified, certified and everything. And I feel like I learned a lot more cinematography skills from that
Right.
versus if I never had that downtime. Like I would still be like, what's Chicago, right? Like what's Portland? Like I have no idea. I've never seen snow, like that kind of thing. Yeah, I actually saw snow.
Coming from Malaysia.
Yeah, like there's so many things that are different, and like obviously from time to time I'll still be like, oh, I wish I was working, but like then you just like, you know what, whatever, like keep reminding like when you're working you can't do this, so do this right now, and then when you do this you work later. When it
Yeah.
comes it will come. You know.
So to wrap things up, because I think we're about to answer some questions. So like, there's a happy ending to this, right? Like, you want to tell us in a few sentences what happened next?
Yeah, so after all that, my work permit finally arrives, and also like I don't know, like it's like I expected it. Like Pixar's not gonna be like come back, like you know they have to like see like how many hit counts and stuff. So I got my work permit, and that's when I'm like, I need to work. I need money now, and um, so that's when I got to work on the Love, Death, and Robots, the Netflix series, and that also completely like blew my mind in like, wow, if I never like had this downtime, I would never be on this cool project. And at
Yeah.
the same time, actually, I was finishing up Sonder, so it gave me a lot more time to like really like focus on Sonder, the short film project that was like remote and volunteer. So like these two just like kind of like boost even more like kind of like what I need to know with the skills and the pipeline in the animation industry. And then shortly after Love, Death and Robots, that's when they need me on for Toy Story 4, thankfully. And so I returned, and
Triumph.
yeah, and so like and actually returning with this whole new perspective of like, you know, my career isn't everything. It really helped me not be like so insecure at work anymore. I actually like I'm just gonna do I'm like I felt more confident, like because I know like my worth is not attached to this thing on the screen anymore. I'm just gonna do this thing, and then I come home, I still have me. It was like so freeing, you
Yeah.
know. And then yeah, there's like a lot more journey from there too, because then there's like rigging actually came back to my life, rigging and modeling.
Yeah.
And so like I never like lose that part of me, like even though I started out wanting to do modeling, rigging, and I went to like camera. And um one day like they needed someone in the characters department. I was like, I can kind of do that, and they were willing to take me and train me, and now I'm doing both modeling, rigging, and camera. So
It's almost like the lesson here is sort of like, no matter what happens in your life, there's almost like a reason for it. And like the way that you like see it is because, you know, whatever happens in your life, you just make the most out of it. And that includes like taking care of yourself, being okay with disappointment, being okay with like, you know, failures, because you take those mistakes and you learn from them, or like, you know, things are out of your control, and you can still make the most out of it, right? To the best of our ability, especially with our support and everything.
yeah, and
So
everyone has a different path for sure. So this
yes,
is just my path, and
and
yeah.
everyone else has a beautiful path to find, or they're currently on, you know, to do what they want to do.
Mhm.
I am going to throw some questions at you, Andrea. Just
Okay,
check.
how much time will we have?
I think we've got about 16 minutes. About.
Okay, all right.
So let's do this. So the first question is like, were your mentors all in layout, or were they in other departments?
All of my mentors. I have so
Yes.
many mentors. I think yeah, the main mentor when I was an intern, trying to get into layout, he's from layout, which is Adam Habib, and at the same time, like general like industry mentors, like I said, like Sarah Sampson, producer of Sonder, and Neth Nam, director of Sonder. Like these people are just always like the overarching like what no matter what they're doing, like I'm not trying to follow what they're doing, but it's more like, hey, like this weird thing happened. Like, is this supposed to do that? And they will be like, oh, you must trust yourself. They're that kind of mentor to me. And trying to think if I other my mom is always the mentor for like being true to myself and like yeah. So.
That's awesome. Yeah. There's like different kind of mentors. I feel like there's because like you have your mentors, then you have a coach, right? Someone who pushes you. Then you have your peers who like can learn and grow with you. Then you have your like friends who like there's this like really great TED talk by I think Stacey Flowers about the 5 people you need in your life. I would recommend watching that. Yeah, for sure.
Having like levels of people that like you can go to.
Right. Yeah. All right. Second question. What is crucial in a layout demo reel? Should there be a focus on 2D work or focus on learning and including 3D work also?
It depends on the job that you're applying to. So it really depends on the studio you're applying to. I would say like try to cater it. Like if you're applying to like CG studio that does like feature animation films, then try to like have cinematic like CG layout stuff. 2D animation would be like a plus, but like they definitely want to see like if you know how to work in the CG world. That said, though, like before this whole thing, there was like a first ever layout internship where they kind of were exploring to grab people from different backgrounds. So just try to like see what the studio wants. They always have like the requirements, and I will always try to like at least have one kind of work that like caters to the studio style. And the biggest thing I would say strongest for like the layout is like when you are part of a project, like a film project that you work with others, you have a huge collaboration, and you're able to translate like a storyboard reel to a 3D reel, 3D a layout with like camera decisions that makes it more like cinematic, and then seeing the final like that is always like I feel like this goes for like any kind of department that you're applying for. Every time like if you're a modeler, like they always want to see like how you translate that 2D character design into your 3D model. They always want to see that process. They want to compare it, and then they want to see like that you work with someone to like solve the problem. And same like rigging, like they want to see like this is the T-pose and now it's moving. Like anything that shows like, look, I did this thing and it actually can be passed down to someone else in the next department and it still works, and someone can pass me anything that I can make it work. Like that is a sign of a huge collaboration. So
yeah, that's a pretty good answer. Wow, this next one is a loaded one. There's so many ways to answer this. What do you feel is the best way to prepare for an interview?
Best ways to prepare for an interview.
It depends on the interview and the position, right? So I guess you could talk from a character TD layout like perspective.
I think definitely number one, know your studio, and definitely the interview style depends on the studio. I don't know. I can't speak for all the studios, but I think you have to know what you're applying for. Like I've interviewed a bunch of people before where I feel like, do you know that this is not the actual job requirement? like you would be applying for another job if you're talking about all this. And then secondly, just like, I know this is said so many times and it's probably so annoying, but really just be yourself. like truly be yourself in a way that, but then you're going to say like, but what about like confidence? But what about like when you are yourself, that is your confidence. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, it's like, you don't have to like be louder or softer than whoever you are. Just like, if you're a soft-spoken person, just be soft-spoken person, you know, like your work is gonna speak. And just one other thing that I feel like it might be hard for someone, maybe because of their personality or something, but like really just like try to explain and elaborate your process. For some people, it might come naturally, like, oh yeah, and I did this, this. And for some people, like, just like, yeah, and I did this. And people are like, okay, can you tell us more? And so I would say when you are true to yourself and then you kind of like look at your work and feel the passion, you will naturally just keep talking about it. So just channel that part of yourself. Like, I'm pretty sure you geek out about art and you geek out about whatever you're doing. Just channel that. We love to see like that coming through all the time. And yeah, that's how you know like you gave your best.
Yeah. I think the most important thing for interviews is like doing your best and being okay with that. And like, but another thing I would add to that is like, you know, the people usually, you know, who are interviewing want to be working with someone. They want to get to know you and get to know if they can work with you, right? So if you're able to communicate, if you're able to be true to yourself, right?
Yeah.
Who wants to work with someone who's like fake? So for sure.
Yeah, and we can tell if someone is like not themselves.
Yeah.
And then we will sometimes be like, maybe it's nerves. If it's nerves, it's totally fine. You know, like we can tell. Like we can tell someone it's, oh, they're just nervous.
Yeah.
But we can tell, oh, this person is really trying very hard to like show that they're really good at this. And I feel like that can be like, you know, so.
Yeah. I think for sure, like whoever asked that question, in the future for We at Bay Area, we're definitely going to talk about, or at least I hope that we're going to talk about interviews. So stay in tune for that. So our fourth question, we're coming close. So fourth question is, when it comes to picking a career in animation, do you choose what you want to get into or what your strengths are when breaking into the animation industry?
Ooh. That's a tough one.
You know, I have an answer for this, which I feel like of course you want to choose what you want to get into, but I feel like from my experience when you're getting into the animation industry, whether, you know, there's so many environments that you can work in which change the job description. Like a producer title changes from studio to studio. And so depending if you're at an indie studio or a small studio or a big studio, right? Like the roles change. Yeah. And so, like, you know, even for artists as well, like, you know, some studios will be more as a generalist, or some you'll be very specialized and you are the only one in charge of, you know, rigging the lips of a character.
Oh yeah, so, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, it gets really specialized. So, like, you know, I think the beautiful thing, and I hope, you know, what you all can get to is like, as you get into animation industry, kind of like what Andrea did, is like, just kind of go with it, explore, and really listen to what you love to do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Like, you know, like and that's why it's like you do choose as you get into the animation industry or you're trying to break in, but like you're, you know, as a person, however old you are, you're always growing and changing and finding your strengths or honing your strengths to the point where maybe it changes the things that you want to do.
There's definitely like layers of like what you want and what you're good at always, and you can start from like the broadest one, where I kind of talk about like I always love storytelling. That's like a broadest, like it's so broad that like there's so many studios that does storytelling, even games that does storytelling, right? And there's so many departments under storytelling. Like even if you're a production coordinator, you're part of a storytelling team. You know, you're telling stories. So like definitely have the broad one. Like if the broad one is like I want to do like action packed stuff. Like I want to do like really story feeling. Like for me, it's like I want to make people cry. Like that kind of touchy feely thing. And some people, I have friends who are like, I love really cute stuff. Like, you know, they that's like very general still, right? It's just like just anything cute is like just hypes me up, and or someone's like yeah, and so like that's number one, like just the broad thing, like like that's what draws you all the time. Like and then from there, then you start to like okay, so in this world of storytelling, in this world of cute things, how can I be part of that world? And then that's when all the departments comes in, right? There's like you can even code to make your cute stuff, and you have sound design for cuteness, you have animation for cuteness, you can draw cute stuff, you can like even like just rig cute stuff, like so many things. And that's when I feel like you pair it with what you think you're good at as a person. So like everyone's like different, right? Like Amy's more organized than I am, so
I don't know.
And I feel like for me it's like I'm more like a big picture person. I don't really go into like the details of polish and everything. And then knowing that of myself and accepting that, you will find something that will pair with that, like you would say like lighting, and actually like sculpting is very like polished to like the max, like you go like that little thing there is perfect, whereas like layout is like let's put the camera in, let's put the characters, let's make it move, and then that's more about timing and everything, like so it's like more like big picture shot by shot kind of thing. So there's like so many ways to like find out what you're good at and then pair it with that department that is still under the umbrella of what you want, like
it's really good. I mean, this is so many ways, and then also that goes to like what companies that you want to apply to too, because like you might have different traits of how you work with people and everything. All right, we got 4 minutes. I've got 2 questions for you. Okay, so many great questions. So the last one from the audience, and then I have one for you, Andrea. But the last one from the audience is, what kind of advice would you give towards aspiring artists wanting to work in animation that are non-U.S. citizens?
Oh, wait, like you want to be in US or you're just gonna be outside?
I'm not sure. Let's
okay.
How about both, right? Because like I think there's a lot of cases where students, international students like work in the U.S. or like study in the U.S. and then they can't find a job and they have to go back or they don't get into DreamWorks or Pixar and yeah.
I would say if you're starting out, just come here. Yes, we will have our dreams of getting into big studios. Just know that that's not the only place that you can get jobs, and I feel like putting yourself out there is one of the key that I really like make sure that I did when I was a student while balancing my skills. So the more I learned, the more I like join communities and go to conferences, talk to people, join projects, volunteer for projects. Like those 2 things really help for when like I need like a job. I rely on these 2 things. So I guess non-US citizen, the putting yourself out there is a little bit more important in terms of like just so that you can layer it for like O1 visa or like getting a job that gives you work visa and all those things. So I don't know if I'm answering it right.
Well, maybe we can get into this next question, which maybe since we're really only out of time, we got 1 minute left. What words of encouragement would you give to students and up and coming professionals who are pursuing their passion? Like maybe 3 words of encouragement if you can do that.
Don't give up.
Okay,
yeah, I think that's the key. Like, and you can define giving up in so many ways. Taking a break is not giving up. Feeling sad and disappointed and having to process that it's not giving up, having to deal with your mental health and your physical health first.
Having a part-time job, having another full-time job.
It's not giving up. Yeah. Like giving up just means that you. I don't know what giving up means. Like giving up, I think, just means like you became like bitter and like just like you forgot why you started in the first place. To me, that is giving up. Like never give up, and it's not just giving up on like finding job or giving up on working on your skill. It's like never give up yourself either. Like like you start this because of who you are, like you want, yeah, of who you are, and if you kind of like give up yourself in to trade for something else, that's you're never gonna be happy. So just don't give up. You can do it.
Such wise words. So that is the end of our Q&A. Thank you
Yeah.
everyone for joining us today for our first episode. Please subscribe to this channel and our social media for future videos. We have some really exciting topics and guests in the future.
I don't know
So
where the button is.
thanks everyone. And I guess we'll see you next time. All right.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks everyone. Do a little dance.
You're done. I don't know if you can see me sweating. Sweating so much.